What's good everyone, my name is Chefkoch and today I want to talk about the cultural impact of Scarface on rap music and why it became hip-hop's favorite film. Scarface was a 1983 gangster movie directed by Brian De Palma that told the story of Tony Montana, a Cuban exile who fled to Miami to become a drug kingpin. The film was a remake of Howard Hawks' 1932 Scarface and originally only had a lukewarm reception. Critics and mainstream audiences in 1983 did not appreciate Scarface due to its bloated runtime and excessive violence. So why did the global perception of the movie change so drastically, and why did it achieve a cult status decades later? Well, that's because Scarface was dead and buried until hip hop rediscovered it. At least that's what Stephen Bauer, who played Manny Rivera in the movie, said. In the early 90s, Rivera even started getting recognized on the street by rappers, and Tony Montana's actor Al Pacino directly attributed the success of Scarface to hip-hop influence. Hip-hop just got it, they understood it and they embraced it, Pacino said. Therefore, the movie was saved by an audience that the filmmakers never had in mind, the 90s hip-hop community. Rappers and hip-hop fans were enamored by Tony Montana and his story. He was the ultimate underdog, just like a lot of rappers saw themselves as underdogs in their city's hip-hop scene, in the music industry, or even in society as a whole. Rappers resonated with the rags to riches story and taking your destiny into your own hand. Andre 3000 of Outkast, for example, cited Tony Montana as a maverick anti-hero. And Nas once said, "We all are savages in pursuit of the American dream," referring to the movie as well. And the rap group Public Enemy claimed that by celebrating Tony Montana, a man on the streets with nothing who turns the drug trade into a fortune, the movie resonated with young black men who were largely being raised by culture of hip hop. And at the end, Tony became obsessed with greed and power, which ultimately led to self-destruction, so Scarface also functioned as a guide on how not to deal with your wealth. Still, Tony Montana became a cultural icon in hip hop, representing the ultimate self-made figure, and the movie Scarface would become a foundational influence for rap music. So now let's figure out in which direct way Scarface impacted our favorite music genre. First of all, the movie of course influenced hip hop lyrically, using Tony Montana as a symbol of the hustler mentality rising from nothing to extreme wealth and power. And due to Scarface being a gangster movie, it became an appealing subject for gangster rappers, and references to the film became ubiquitous in the 90s hip hop scene. Kool G Rap was the first New York MC to reference Scarface on his 1992 track Ill Street Blues, on which the Queens rapper quoted the "a pig that don't fly straight" line from the movie.
Do you know what a hustler is, friend? That's a pig that don't fly straight.
Next to that, the immensely profitable and towering career of Jay-Z began with the reenactment of Omar Suarez offering Tony a lucrative drug deal in the opening track Can't Knock the Hustle from his renowned album Reasonable Doubt. And this moment, when Tony was first drawn to the wealth and power of the narcotics trade, poetically coincided with Jay-Z's rapid emergence as a megastar in the rap genre and as a business mogul. Furthermore, the equally essential debut album Illmatic by fellow New York-based rapper Nas featured the single The World Is Yours. The track, with a title inspired by the mantra on the blimp that Tony Montana later memorialized in his palace, and a music video that showed Nas sitting in a hot tub just like the Kingpin himself, was an explicit homage to Scarface. And staying with Illmatic, the song New York State of Mind also included a bar about Scarface sniffing cocaine and holding an M16. Therefore, it is fair to say that Scarface and Tony Montana were big cultural influences on Nas and Jay-Z for their music. But also the notorious B.I.G. took a liking to the film, reciting Frank and Elvira's well-suited advice to never get high on your own supply on his song 10 Crack Commandments, in which Biggie presented himself as the Moses of the drug game. Other than that, Raekwon's Only Built for Cuban Links was littered with references to the 1983 movie. His most obvious one of course has to be Incarcerated Scarfaces, and in an interview Raekwon even referred to the movie as the Bible of hip hop. So this further proves that Scarface was becoming hip hop's favorite film. But we have many more Scarface mentions in the rap industry. For example, the song Money, Power and Respect by The Lox is a play on the money, power, woman scene. And countless other rappers have mentioned either Scarface or Tony Montana in their lyrics. Most notably Ice Cube on The World Is Mine, The Migos on Antidote, J. Cole on Immortal, A$AP Rocky on Babushka Boy, Tory Lanez on Diego, or Young Thug on Power. It makes sense that Scarface became such a common subject matter for rap lyrics because the movie presented a lot of hip-hop themes visually. A decadent lifestyle, the hustling for cash by any means necessary, the drug trade, keeping your circle small, dealing with snakes, threats of violence, all those things are omnipresent themes in hip-hop text, and that's why rappers love to use Scarface or Tony Montana as references. Scarface was also a big source of influence for the subgenre coke rap that emerged in the 21st century. We can see the inspiration especially on albums like Lord Villain by Clips or Daytona by Pusha T. And again, it makes perfect sense because Scarface reinforced the gangster rap archetype that rappers like Pusha T presented in their music. But there's no way we can talk about the relationship between Scarface and hip hop without mentioning the namesake rapper Scarface. As a solo act and as a member of the Ghetto Boys, Brad Jordan borrowed the nickname of Tony Montana because he felt that he related to the character, as he often rapped about the tales of poverty, drugs and other criminal acts. In addition, we need to talk about the countless songs that were named directly after Tony Montana, most notably of course the hit track by Future. Next to that, Chief Keef named one of his tracks from Almighty So 2, Tony Montana Flow, and while we're talking about Keef, it is important to notice that his nickname Sosa is inspired from the Scarface character Alejandro Sosa, a Bolivian drug lord and the chief supplier of cocaine for Tony Montana, who later becomes the main antagonist. Now, Chief Keef took the nickname Sosa in the early 2010s and even named his fifth child Snow, meaning the white Sosa, so I guess Keef was a really big fan of the movie. But also other rappers were huge fans of the film because in 2003 Def Jam Recordings released a compilation album titled Music Inspired by Scarface that featured songs by various hip hop artists like Mobb Deep, Ice Cube or Jay-Z amongst others, which either drew direct inspiration from the movie or contained subject matter that could relate to the film. So as a quick summary on what we learned so far, Scarface had a huge impact on rap lyrically. Either the movie name or a character from it was mentioned directly in a song, because often rappers like to compare themselves to Tony Montana, or since the film is extremely quotable, rappers also love to recite lines from the film as a cultural insider. And moving away from the lyrical content, we also have visual inspirations from Scarface used for hip hop music videos. I already mentioned Nas and Jay-Z with their recreations of specific Scarface scenes, but also the beginning of the music video for Two of America's Most Wanted by Tupac and Snoop Dogg was a reference to a scene from the movie. Snoop even said in an interview that Scarface was one of the most influential movies of all time due to its heartfelt rags to riches tale. So here we have proof again for the film's impact on hip hop music. This impact was that significant that in 2001 plans were made for rapper Cuban Link to write and star in a sequel of Scarface titled Son of Tony. So the hip hop community even got actively involved in movie business to retell the Scarface story. But the project was cancelled later, and to be honest, I don't know if a new sequel could come close to the 1983 version. And coming back to the music itself, the Scarface soundtrack also became a big source of influence for rappers and producers to sample. For example, Mobb Deep's G.O.D. Part 3 samples the beginning of the Scarface soundtrack Pushing to the Limit. The intro of Jeans Soaked by Lil Shine uses that same part as well, and the hook from Pushing to the Limit was sampled on songs like Push It by Vero and Cameron, and on Push It by Miami rapper Rick Ross. In addition, dialogue from the movie, especially lines by Tony Montana, were regularly used as ad-libs in rap songs, for example on Mr. Motion by D Savage, as well as on old school Memphis tracks like Fly Straight by Indo G or Meet Your Maker by Tommy Wright III. Next to that we can find similar ad-libs all over Almighty So by Chief Keef, and in 2023 Drake took a monologue by Tony Montana in the film and included it on his song Daylight. Besides that, the extravagant lifestyle shown in Scarface, mansions, expensive suits, flashy cars and luxurious settings became an aesthetic template for the hip hop culture, especially for rappers' clothing styles and accessories like you can see here, but also for album covers, for example for The World Is Yours by Rich the Kid or The Plugs I Met by Benny the Butcher. Other than that, Scarface became a popular aesthetic in the underground rap scenes, most notably in the pluggnb, Asian rock and dark plug subgenres. An example for this would be Scarface Cito by Slime Cito, and Tony Montana's lines were also used as a producer tag for Zangang. You can hear it on old summer songs, for example on his album Devotion. Therefore, Scarface's impact on rap music is visible to this day. Many artists in the contemporary underground still use the film for samples or lyrical references, So as a conclusion, rap music was majorly responsible for the success of Scarface in the first place, and for hip hop it was more than just a movie. Scarface developed a cult status and Tony Montana became a cultural icon for hip hop. It is interesting because despite black actors having no significant presence in the film, black American audiences saw Scarface as their story. And that's because the narrative transcends ethnicity. And in the end, as a full circle moment, hip hop influenced the movie industry, like when the French film La Haine turned the classic Scarface motto "The world is yours" and evolved it into "The world is ours" or "Le monde est à nous" in French. Scarface and its motto resonate with artists and fans to this day, so it is fair to say that it became hip hop's favorite film. It was a blueprint for success, a symbol of the rise from poverty to power, and a cautionary tale about excess and betrayal. Its impact on rap is undeniable, shaping both lyrical content and the visual identity of hip hop culture, and I hope that I was able to prove that to you with this video. With that being said, thank you so much for watching the video till the end, leave a like if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so we can hit 900 subscribers. Cheers!